Kirk Hilliard.
And this is Rusty Byrd. It's the Kirk and Byrd Show. We are blessed to have with us today the head football coach of one of my favorite college football programs at Christopher Newport University. We have head coach Paul Crowley. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Appreciate it, guys. That was quite the musical intro. It got me going a little bit.
My son produced that, actually. He loves music. He's always dropping an album, you know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Before we started recording the episode, we were chatting with you about all the ties and things, and how much Christopher Newport has grown, and it's so exciting. And then, we see you all up here constantly. So before we get started, I just want to ask everybody to subscribe to us. Most people don't. We'll live, but if you can, that's great. We're on Twitter at the Kirk and Byrd, and we are also on Instagram. Twitter, we're very active, especially if you're tracking high school players. A lot of college coaches follow us. But, Coach, thanks for coming on. I wanted to start off with, I looked at your roster, and you can correct me here. I don't think you have more than 3 or 4 recruits out of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Am I right?
Yeah, right now we have just one kid who's not from the state of Virginia. It's the point of emphasis we make in building our roster. Because we're a state school, so keeping kids in state at an affordable price is big. But B, there's such a vast amount of talent, and it really doesn't make sense to leave too far from home.
Yeah. We I look at Twitter constantly, and the kids. Obviously, the whole game now, the graphics that you do. I don't know what they call it, a markup or a paint up, all that stuff. But you guys get them with spotlights on the uniform. They didn't do that back in the day. But we see so many, like there was a flurry of Christopher Newport is just here. And, you're recruiting Northern Virginia heavily, Loudoun County. Colin Hart is your leading wide receiver. He's a Stonebridge kid. I've seen him play since I think 5th, 6th grade, and then many other kids. But how is it going out there and recruiting the Commonwealth of Virginia against all the competition? You've got the Power 5 UVA and Virginia Tech. You've got the FCS with Richmond. So how is it out there, and what exactly are you trying to bring into the program? And by the way, you're coming off a 7-3 season, but how is it out there on the recruiting trail as a Division III program, trying to recruit these kids?
Yeah, it's a unique niche, and I kind of always harken it back to my recruiting process because I played down in Virginia Beach at Landstown High School in some of those really good years, and I was an All-State Offensive Lineman, but I was undersized. I was 250 pounds, so I kind of got the full gambit of recruiting of, hey, maybe you can come walk on at some Division I schools, some Division II half scholarships, and some Division III. So I kind of saw firsthand 15, 20 years ago what it was like. And it's definitely a unique niche at Division III, but ultimately we're just looking for high character kids that really love football because, you'd be shocked how many kids come to college and they really don't love the sport that they play. They've always just played it. And if you don't really love it, you're not going to make it in college. So that's really what we try and find out about the kids.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no doubt. So, Coach, before we go into this this past season and even look going forward, you mentioned that you're from the area.
Right.
We're from Hampton. Let's get a little bit into your background. So tell us, you grew up, you said, in Virginia Beach. You went to Lansdowne. Tell us about your experience growing up there. When I was a kid, Lansdowne didn't exist. Okay. But we used to go and we played an annual game against Kempsville, and they were really good. I was after DJ Dozier, but I played against Keith McMeans, who was a great quarterback, played defensive back at UVA, and there were some really good teams over there. And then all of a sudden I hear about this, and Lansdowne was like great early. Tell me about your experience growing up in Virginia Beach. Were you all military? What brought you there? And then how you got to your story to where you are now?
Yeah. So both my parents went to Old Dominion. They were working in geology. So that's what brought us.
Okay.
And my older brother, younger brother, and we were all athletes. We played every sport you could possibly think of year round, right? When it wasn't soccer, it was football. When it wasn't football, it was basketball, and so on and so forth. And really, my older brother played at Salem High School down there when Chris Beatty took over, and they had some really good teams with Don Byrd, Mike Beal, and they broke a bunch of records. Then I was at Landstown because it opened up. So really, I was there the first year the school opened.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we were kind of the little brother to a lot of the Chesapeake schools at the time. You know, everyone really looked up to Deep Creek, and they had D'Angelo Hall and Daryl Tapp and a bunch of guys like that. And Western Branch had Ryan Pond and Vince Hall, a really good linebacker. So, you know, Virginia Beach football was kind of secondary to that. And we were fortunate. We had a lot of really good players at Landstown with the Percy Havins and the Damon McDaniels and Devon Simmons and all those guys that the first thing we really had to do was get over those teams to get out of the region. So my junior year, we were able to beat Oscar Smith and then beat Western Branch, and we made it to the state championship and played Westfield, and we got beat pretty good in the state championship. They had the older Glennon brother and Evan Royce.
Sean, he's been on our show. They have
Sean's been on our show. Eddie Royal
and Eddie Royal.
Yeah, one of the only sacks I gave up. We were winning 7-0. I gave up a sack. So they had a good D lineman. I can't remember the name, but I'm walking to the sideline and I just hear the crowd erupt because we punted it to Eddie Royal when the plan all week was to punt it out of bounds, and it was all about downhill from there. So got to experience that state championship. But then the next year we came back and probably didn't have quite as good of a team. But, you know, Percy was a year older and we had some really good individual players and some leadership, and made it back out, played a great game against Oscar Smith in the region finals, 40-39. It's kind of an all-time classic down here. Came down to a 2-point conversion at the end, and then played Robinson in the state championship. With Coach
I was there at the University of Richmond when y'all played Robinson. Yep. That Percy Havin performance was unbelievable. I remember, to me, it was the next, if not better than what Allen Iverson did when he won the state championship for my school, Bethel, you know, back in 92, I believe. You know, just like Allen, I remember Bubba Chuck threw a touchdown, ran a touchdown, returned a touchdown, intercepted, and he called it. You know, like, so when I saw Percy, I was like, yo, he was all over the place, dominating.
Did y'all win that one against Robinson?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Was that the
and
Mike?
That was a good
Mike
Robinson program.
Yeah, Mike Emo was there, I think. Early 2000s. No, he was a little older.
They had they didn't have necessarily like they had a run, went to Wake Forest. I can't think of his name. But they had a good team, but we beat them pretty good in that game, and you know, finished my high school career on a high note for sure. Yeah. And then that into the recruiting, and then, you know, eventually choosing CNU.
Right.
What year did CNU start their program?
2001, right?
Yep, 2001. So it had been around 4 years. So it actually the same year as Landstown. So after my 4 years at Landstown, I came into the football program.
Yeah. Coach, who did you play for at Landstown?
2 head coaches. So Robert Jackson was the first 2 years. And he's actually back down there now. You know, had a roundabout career. He's a really tough disciplinarian kind of coach. And then after 2 years, the head coach from Salem came over, Chris Beatty.
That's right. There you go. Okay.
He's really one of my mentors in coaching to this day. And he, you know, went on to coach at Hampton, and then Northern Illinois, and then Wisconsin. I mean, you'd have to have
West Virginia. He was West Virginia.
Yeah.
That's a good mentor for recruiting too, Coach, because we talked about recruiting. Did you, before I ask you about your recruiting experience, and by the way, it is awesome to have a player like Percy Havin on your team, because all that attention opens doors for a lot of other players. But did you play any other sports, Coach Crowley?
Yeah, I played baseball at Landstown. I probably I threw shot put too, but I probably would have been good enough to play basketball at a lot of schools. But they had a state championship caliber basketball team too, and I wasn't quite big or tall enough to be honest.
You guys lost. Was that Percy's senior year?
His junior year. So we won the state championship in track, and we would have been the first team to ever do it in track, basketball, and football. But they lost to Woodside twice in the region championship, and then they made it back to play Woodside again, I think at VCU.
Yeah, I was there. I was at both of those games, yeah. those years. And your coach, the basketball coach, he's still there now.
Yeah. White Robinson, great guy, played football.
Robinson.
Yep.
Yeah. So he was there when you were in school?
Yeah, he was a defensive coach. He was coaching football then too.
Yeah, because he and my brother are very close friends. My brother, after playing pro football, he was a counselor and the defensive coordinator at Heritage High School when they won the state championship in 2000. And but they talk all the time even now. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great dude. He's got the basketball program still rolling down there too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
oh, yeah. They're good. They're really good this year too. Yep.
Yeah, them and Oscar Smith are probably odds on to go to the state tournament. So, Coach, when did you realize that you had a shot of playing in college? Because so many people, well, you get more publicity now with kids tweeting and all that, but the vast majority, high school was the end. When did you realize that you had a shot at playing in college, and how did that begin with who was recruiting you?
Yeah, everything was pushed back then. Now nobody's really watching senior film for the most part. You're getting recruited off junior film. But for me, it kind of took off after that senior year because I got named All-State and was a much better player my senior year. So then I started hearing from, all those schools I talked about, and I didn't have a clue about the recruiting process. So it was, going to visit and check out places and see what you liked.
Right. So where did you go? I'm not sure if I picked up on that, but I really want to nail down why you chose Christopher Newport. What were some of the other places you looked at?
Yeah, so I looked at Chowan, the William and Mary of the worlds. We're talking walk-ons,
right.
All the D3s you would think of, right? The Randolph-Macons and those plays, and then there's a lot of D2s out in West Virginia. I never actually did. They were a little too far from home, but really, I tell recruits this. I don't know that I had a thought out plan on why I chose it. It was more of a feel thing, but in retrospect, looking back, I think it was close to home. So, having the ability to play an hour from home and kind of get that best of both worlds from college. Affordability, we were a state school and I was a single parent home at the time. The academics, they've skyrocketed even more, but now, our average kid there with a William and Mary and UVA type high school student.
Yeah.
And then, once you've played in those regional championships and state championship games and played for a winning program, I didn't want to go back somewhere where the last couple games in the season didn't matter or you weren't playing in front of a good crowd. So, I knew CNU was getting 5,000 people at the home games, and they had been a 4-time conference champion to start their program. So that was all very appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I heard Christopher Newport was getting football, I was like, oh my gosh, that's because one, the thing that I thought of is they're state school. Like all of their competition that I know of, most of it was, they're Division III in Virginia, like that whole, all the Route 81 Division III schools recruited me. And I was like, whether it was the distance or just the social life, but if a Christopher Newport had football when we were coming out, I would have jumped on that. And so I really think, and again, I love Christopher Newport sports back going to high school, but like you said, the facilities, the academic things. My wife is a college and career counselor, and she says all the time, like, no, Rusty, like that's a hard school to get into.
Very.
And like it's the school of Northern Virginia kids want to go to. Like they think that's just it, and it is. It's like it's elite, it's cool, beautiful campus. I've been there. They didn't do it the last 3 years, but a friend of mine, Carl Francis, who Yeah, we graduated. We played football together, but I helped with that camp that he would, the Hampton Roads Youth Football Camp, and so I'd be there, helping out and just being around. And I was like, man, and I coached track, and we had one state or regional USATF or AAU state track championship there, and just every time I would walk into campus, going, oh my gosh, this is great.
Right.
Yeah, I think So maybe I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but Coach Kelchner, who started the program, who I played for and coached under for a long time, won, I think, 11 championships in those 16 years he was the head coach.
Yep.
And everyone kind of assumes it was one steady thing, but it really wasn't, because, 2001 to 08 or whatever, the academics weren't the same, right? So then it's the gold mine you're thinking of, where, every local kid with a pulse can get in, and we all know how good the talent level is down here. As the academics changed, your recruiting profile had to change a little bit, and the kids you're bringing in and what you're looking for, it became much more selective. And that was part of the appeal of Northern Virginia is, you got a lot of good kids that have really good grades up there as well. So now you really got to get a hodgepodge of different kids from around the state and find the high academic ones, right? Try to beat the William and Mary walk-on, or try to beat the Richmond walk-on.
Yeah.
It does appear from looking at your roster that Northern Virginia is probably your number one recruiting space. Is that right, Coach?
No, I track it every year. 7.5 is still number. I take some pride in that. I still recruit that area myself, even as the head coach, because especially Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, there's really good football, and you get a lot of, you guys know that, and really tough kids that tend to stick and have really good careers. So is 2 now, and the Richmond area is not far behind. And to be perfectly honest, Richmond might be playing some of the best football in the state right now, as an area.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because we talked with Coach Harvell, the baseball coach, and they won today, and they won yesterday, opening day. So we're rooting for him to win that College World Series. And I think they've got a series with SUNY Newport this weekend. That should be good. But he was saying that the academic requirements are, they're very big, because, you look at JMU, Virginia Tech, UVA, William and Mary, those are all really, really good schools, but CNU is right there with selectivity. And how's that play into difficulty, those academic standards?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. So, when I took over as head coach, I'd been around it long enough. I think you have to lean into what the school is, right? If you try and fight it and bring in the wrong kids that aren't going to fit that, well, you're not going to be successful. So, you really do a great job of identifying the kids that fit your criteria, academically. And usually when you bring those kids in, they're really smart and they're really good kids. So you can, just by nature of who you're self-selecting, you'll have a better culture, a better, team unity, a more resilient group of kids. So that's kind of what we see as our edge now, is having those kind of kids. No different than how William and Mary tries to win.
Right. I was going to ask the move from the Dixie Conference to the New Jersey Athletic Conference. I believe it's you and Salisbury. We used to call it Salisbury State. You're the only 2 non-New Jersey teams. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but what do you think about that move from the Dixie Conference, or was it the other? What was the other name? South.
Good. South.
Right. How has that been for you?
Yeah. So when I played, and most of my career in coaching, we were in the USA South, and we were able, I could say now, I guess, dominate that league pretty good, and all sports, but football too. So they didn't necessarily like having us in that league anymore. So given the choice, they kicked us out. And I get it. In an ideal world, we wanted to join the ODAC and play with some of those schools, the Randolph-Macons, the Bridgewaters. They didn't want us in as a state school. So had to find a league. And luckily in football, we were able to join the New Jersey Athletic Conference, which, was a whole different caliber. I think at the time, our head coach said it was like going from the Sun Belt to the SEC. Because we had been a playoff team. Salisbury had been a playoff team at the time. Frostburg State was in it. They moved on and won some games, a lot of games in D2. Wesley College, which was a top 5 program in the country, was in it. And then all these other New Jersey schools, Rowan, who had played for national championships, Montclair State. So it became pretty quickly when that happened.
Yeah, those Division III programs, my son was looking at Shenandoah, Averett, but he committed to Alvernia, a newer program. But just like I know the Division II and the Division III in Pennsylvania, and up in that northeast corridor, New Jersey, it is strong. So the Division II, Division III, like it's some of the best in the country. Because at one point he was being recruited by Shepherd, and they play all those Pennsylvania schools at the Division II level. And Slippery Rock, Millersville, all those, that's great football.
Yeah, actually, we were running the Slippery Rock. Actually, funny enough, coming down trying to recruit the 757 a little bit this year, which was a little different. But yeah, it's a different brand of kid you get from up there. It's typically more physical, stronger.
Big Ten country, big lineman, good run.
Yeah. So that was what we had to change in our recruiting is find, which is harder to do in Virginia, is find those big kids that could hold up at the point of attack.
Right.
But yeah, there's some really good programs up there. In my career, I've gotten to coach or play against Mary Hardin Baylor and Mount Union and Wesley.
Oh wow.
Mount Union, yeah.
Yep. And Wesley at the time was right up there with them. And I can say from my time at William and Mary, those teams could beat some of those lower end 1AA teams. Like you put Mount Union against an Albany, it's going to be a really there's some very, very good Division III football. And I don't think people necessarily realize that.
Right. Coach, I wanted to ask you about facilities. I see that Coach Harvell and Christopher Newport, I think they're opening up a baseball performance center. You can correct me on that, but how are facilities? And, you always have to up facilities, and talk to us about your facilities. And then I want to ask about maybe future expansion, things like that. But, that's a big recruiting tool is your facilities. Talk about the facilities at Christopher Newport for football.
Yeah, our weight room, first off, it's about 6 or 7 years old now, but at the time it was built, was the third biggest in the state.
Wow.
State of the art, and we got a really good strength coach. We got a bunch of Bethel connections. John Dean's our strength coach, who played at Bethel when Iverson was there, and was a basketball guy. Went to JMU, one of their all-time sack leaders. But that part of the facility is great. They just redid our locker room. And, all the stuff the kids use day in and day out is really nice. But to me, our biggest advantage is still the game day atmosphere.
Right.
When you 5,000-6,000 people at a home game, every home game, and you got a 200-person pep band, and, we still have an all grass field. It just feels like college football should feel like, 1 o'clock on a Saturday, you kick off. There's something special to it. So that's to me our biggest edge. At times it was better than what I coached at William and Mary when we had half empty crowds. We have a full stadium every week, and that's something a lot of kids can take for granted, but it's nice.
Coach, I'm pretty sure you would know this guy, but he played a big role in recruiting my son, and he even calls my son cousin. But Mario Byrd. In fact, when we were on the recruiting trip, he was like, "Yo, you the Kirk and Byrd Show." Like he recognized me, and he had gone up to my son and said, "Hey, cuz," and we hit it off. Like, he told me how you played it. He went to Warwick, played it, and coached at CNU. So tell us about some of those type of guys. What are and he has been great. Tell us about not just him, but some of the guys that come through that program and what they go on to do.
Yeah, it's that's the special part about it, right? When you're getting these high academic kids that have goals beyond college and seeing them fulfill them, it's pretty cool. Yeah, Mario, we recruited my year before Kelchner retired, and I went to William and Mary, so got to coach him that year, and then come back when he was a beat up senior and played through a bunch of injuries. And he actually got into the high school side of it for a while, and I was a part of talking him into getting back into college coaching because he has so much potential. He's incredibly smart, energetic, a people person, really, really good recruiter. So it's not easy when you get into coaching, college football coaching initially. You're not going to make much money. And, I kind of convinced him to take that step out of his comfort zone, make a little less money and try to find something you really love doing. And, he took off with it after 1 year, and, I would have loved to continue to have him, but he ended up getting a full-time job up there, which is, the best thing for his career. So I'm proud of what he's done and what he's doing in his career. And I mean, there's too many guys to name that are doing things. And, Cam Barlow, a kid we coached that played corner out of St. Chris in Richmond, he's working in the marketing department for the Denver Broncos now.
Wow.
Do those things. It's Guys working for the FBI, guys doing strength and conditioning at Vanderbilt. There's just this tree all over the place that's pretty special. And Justin Wood, who played with me, and he's the defensive coordinator at Richmond now. So there's the football and the sports side of it. And then there's guys just doing great things in their everyday lives.
Yeah. So I told you we were going to ask you this question. And that is, where do you think Christopher Newport is going as far as possibly moving up? It's just under 5,000 now. And, when I think of Division I programs, like Wake Forest is right around the same size. And what are your thoughts on the next move up for Christopher Newport? Because it's got a great athletics program. What's your thought on that, Coach?
Yeah, ever since I played, we always heard rumors of we're going D1, we're going D2, whatever it might be. And forever, President Tribble, who's the reason our school is what it is, and I mean, the sole reason, was pretty adamant about the size of the school staying at 5,000. He thought it was the perfect size of not being the factory school with 40,000 kids, but not being so small. You're seeing the same people every day. And he was an adamant believer in the ideals of Division III, right? Doing it for the love of it. So I don't think that was ever a realistic thing when he was president. We brought in a new president since then. We're looking forward to getting started with in July. So I think it's really going to be dictated by what he wants to do with it. I think there's merit to all sides, right? Staying in Division III and dominating. I think there's something to that, having the chance to win championships in a lot of sports year in and year out. But we do have the facilities, have the campus, have the athletics department to make a move if it's right. So I'll leave those decisions to the people making those decisions. But I will say, I think there's something to schools staying where they are and dominating at that level. I've seen JMU and ODU, just speaking from the football perspective, make moves to higher level football, and I get the financial reasons for all that stuff. But I think JMU in particular was they were the cream of the crop in 1AA football.
Yeah.
And
that changes when you go to a different level. So I think sometimes you think the grass is greener, maybe it isn't necessarily greener.
But we had a bunch of JMU graduates, guys that played football, and some that played with me in high school. But we had them on, and we asked them about that. This was a year ago before they had made the move up. And, you look at a program that's won two, I still say 1AA, but, FCS, won two national championships, played in the national championship, routinely makes it to the deep in the regions or Final Four. And I said, would you rather do that, hang those banners, be dominant, and we didn't know they were going to have the successful year they had, or kind of move up and never kind of get heard from again, and because, and some of the, former players were kind of split on that.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to have a different opinion on it, but I know from recruiting at that level when I was at William and Mary, like they were as good a place to go as you can be. I mean, I don't know why you would go there over anywhere but Tech and UVA with the crowds they had, with going on these playoff runs. They're still producing NFL draft picks. If they really wanted a kid out of Hampton Roads, even at William Mary, it was going to be very difficult to beat them. So I thought they had a really good niche. But credit to them, obviously they had a heck of a year in a really tough league. So
yeah. We'll start to wrap up, some of this. But the last thing I did want to talk about is, let's talk about last year. Last year was your first year as the head coach, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about that season, and what are you looking forward to for this upcoming?
Yeah, I think, first time head coach, you're always, taking what you like, what you don't like from all the people you work with, right? So I was fortunate with Chris Beatty and Matt Kelchner and Jimmy Laycock over at William Mary to have had some good mentors. And we knew we wanted to be about discipline, accountability, structure, all those things. And then, let the chips fall where they may once the season started. But you never really know how it's going to be. And start the year, we got a good win against Washington and Lee, and then we took 2 losses. A game we shouldn't have lost to Averett, and then played a really good apprentice school team who got after us a little bit. And you're 1-2, and you wonder what the kids are thinking, how bought in they are. You talk a lot about the old days and trying to bring that back, but you don't know how they're going to buy into it. And then they were all bought in, and we went on a 6-game winning streak, had the longest winning streak in school history. And, week 10 there, got to play Salisbury for what became the de facto conference championship, and lost it by 3 on a late touchdown. But really it's a credit to a bunch of the kids on our team. We had some really good football players, and, Matt Dezersky's up there with some of the best players we've had at CNU, our quarterback, kid from South County, State Championship there. He's pretty special. And then, we had some guys on the defensive side of the ball play really well, and brought in some freshman players, like you said, Colin Hart, who was, the leading receiver in the league and first team all conference, and Gunnar White, a running back out of Tallwood, that's pretty good football player as well. So, we feel like we're building it the right way, but, coming off a 7-3 season, sometimes you got to be really careful, because now the expectations have risen.
Right.
And you want to make sure your kids aren't buying into the hype, and look back and realize, we won 6 in a row, but they were all close. They were all 1-score games. A lot of things can bounce a lot of different ways. So making sure they're staying as high were when, the expectations weren't as high for us.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Now you've got your leading passer coming back. You've got your leading rusher coming back. You've got your leading receiver coming back. What is the outlook? Is this going to be expectations for a stronger? You already talked about the expectations of 7 wins, but where do you see the team this fall going into the NJAC? What are some of the goals besides annual goals? But it sounds like you have a solid nucleus coming back.
Yeah, we do. And, it's always, like I said, really dangerous to guess what's going to happen, in the off season. On paper, if you're a prognosticator, you would say we got a pretty good team, but, continuing to improve on the offensive line. We got a lot of guys back, but we graduated some good players there. Really just refining and developing our current players, right? Like, the defensive line was a weakness for us when we first started, and we have a bunch of kids that had to play a lot as freshmen on defense, and you hope they continue to get better, but you don't, always know if that's going to be the case. So those are the biggest things. And then just competition. You guys alluded to some of our recruiting class this year. We feel like we got some really good players. So I think competition is the ultimate way to improve your team across the board.
Okay, Coach, this is my favorite part. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, Kirk, get out of here. This is my favorite part of our episode. Everybody, we learned about you as a football player, as a coach, but I'm sure there are things that people don't know about you. So I love to do this part of the show where we get to know a little bit more personable stuff about you. I hope it helps with recruiting. It doesn't turn anybody away. But sometimes I do this, and I work in the federal government. And when I'm interviewing and bringing on staff, one of the things I do, I ask all the stuff they know about budgeting and all that and experience. But I want to know, what do you do? What do you do when you get home? What takes you home? Like, what is it you like to do on the weekend and the evenings? And what are you about? And the reason I say this, because I'm a team leader, and I think when putting a team together and being a coach, if you can find some commonalities or something that interests you that somebody else is interested in, I think that's neat. For instance, I had a coworker. We're very different, but I noticed she watched Game of Thrones. And so on Mondays, we'd all get together and talk about the latest episode, Mm-hmm. So it's things like that. So I like to know, Coach, tell us a little bit about you outside of football. What do you get, and you have a very busy job, do you get a chance to watch any TV or stream stuff? Do you like any particular style of movie?
Yeah, that's a lot less time than I used to being a head coach. And then to boot, when I got the job, found out my wife was pregnant. So 2 weeks before the year, we just had our first kid. So that's another time job on. Thank you. But yeah, just like anybody else, love streaming, love watching TV, the pop culture side of it. I was a huge Game of Thrones guy. I know you brought it up. And right after the season, I got to watch the new one, The House of the Dragon. That was
yeah.
I like. Some people didn't like it. I thought it was pretty good.
I saved it. I have all the episodes just waiting on my DVR. I can't now. I'm so impatient. Like, I don't watch shows and then have to wait a week. So I got used to that formula with Netflix where you can binge everything. They just release it all at once. But I still love a lot of the HBO and Showtime series. And so Billions and all these shows, but I just save them up. And so I haven't gotten to what is it, House of the Dragon?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I also, because I've had a crazy busy schedule as a parent of 3, government worker, coaching, refereeing, and all those things, active in my church and in the community, I just didn't always have time to do it. But when the pandemic hit, and it was me and my wife and 3 kids in the house, and we couldn't go anywhere, bruh, I was streaming. It started with Tiger King, and I was like hooked after that. Did you have any experiences like that?
Yeah, me and my wife we watched Tiger King. We probably hated ourselves for watching it, I think.
Yeah.
It says a lot of things probably about this country, but yeah, that we watched that one. We're watching The Last of Us now. Whenever that one finishes up, I think new zombie show on.
Yeah.
That one's good. We'll try to get
about Yellowstone.
No, Yellowstone. A little.
You got Paramount. You got Paramount for that, I think. Yeah, Coach.
Okay, and then
favorite movie.
Old school.
Oh,
your favorite movie. That's what I was getting ready to ask.
Yeah.
Favorite movie of all time. Doesn't have to be.
Probably Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I was kind of in that mid-2000s comedy boom when I was in college. So that was when, Anchorman, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Old School, all Superbad, all those came out, and they were kind of.
Those are awesome movies. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
How about a favorite sports movie?
Sports movie. See, I'll stay away from a lot of sports movies. I think sometimes if you know how the sausage is made, you kind of are going to pick a lot of nits and certain things going on. So sometimes it's the stuff that's I'm trying to think. I mean, Remember the Titans when I was a kid was obviously a good one.
Yeah.
Those are the ones I think of, but really as an adult, if a sports movie comes out, unless it's something pretty special, I'm usually just going to stay away from it.
So my wife, one of her, and my sister-in-law, but one of her best friends is a doctor. They're doctors, and they hate watching like TV shows in hospital settings and all that. They're like, you wouldn't do those many CCs. You wouldn't do that, and that's not a good diagnosis what they have. Or I have cousins, and uncle that's actually a judge, but like they'll watch these lawyer shows, and they're like, you wouldn't, that wouldn't be a way you would do it. And they get, like you would say, like they're tearing it apart. And I actually did it. There was a show called Madam Secretary, and it was kind of based on Hillary Clinton. I work in the State Department, but and I work in the main budget office in the front office, and I oversaw oversaw the department's budget that we presented to Congress. And you produce this thing called the Congressional Budget Justification, CBJ. And there was an episode I'm watching, and they come in there, and they're like in the with the secretary, and they're passing out these CBJs, and I'm looking at them going, no, they don't look like that. We don't use binders. Because I do that. I make sure that they're printed, and it's just I'm tearing everything up about embassies and the budget. So yes, I can relate.
Yeah, one of my pet peeves is you're watching a show and they're trying to pick up basketball game, and you're like, oh, these dudes are terrible. Like that. Oh. That's going in, or somebody's trying to chase somebody down on a cop show, and you're watching them run very unathletically, and you're like, dang.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Bro, that's a great example.
New York.
My wife led Lake Braddock to like 5 state championship track. She ran in Maryland, and we coached track for years. And when we see people run on some of these TV shows, and I'm telling you, if you watch any of the FBI this, they always have a running scene, and it's like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? So yes, yeah. I get it. But the other thing is this: my kids, they love watching that show All American. I hate it because not just the acting, but the kids have no football skills. I made my kids watch Friday Night Lights with me, and I was like, look at it. The football, they at least look like athletes in the way they're playing. But I don't know if you've ever seen All American, but it's horrible.
Yeah, no, like one of my favorites as a kid was White Man Can't Jump.
Yeah.
And I listened to a podcast about it, and they were saying Wesley Snipes couldn't ball at all. And then you go back and watch it, and you realize they cut everything, so he's just jumping. They never actually show him dribble or shoot or anything.
Yeah.
They're doing a remake of that, or did they already do it? They're definitely doing a remake, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
So, Coach, On your stream list, whether it be Spotify or Pandora, what would you guesstimate are your top 5 artists? Actually keep a hold of that. What do you think are your top 5 artists?
Jay-Z's definitely in there. That's dating back. I think you always kind of stay stuck in your high school, college days.
Yep.
Some of the alternative stuff when I'm not in the rap mood, Cage the Elephant, Foster the People, some of those type of bands probably. Okay. Outkast. Still listen to a lot of Outkast. You hate to say it, but the older you get, the more you stop listening to the new stuff. I never thought I'd be that guy, but I kind of am now.
Oh yeah, we're in that club by far. A couple of the bands you name, I don't know, but yeah. So we have our obligatory, and we get good feedback on this one. Is if you have $5 billion after taxes, that's with a B. Now we know you're going to do the obligatory. I have to take care of these people. I'm going to start a foundation. But your fund money, which, by the way, if you take 1% of $5 billion, that's 50%, or 50 million. What would you do with the $5 billion? You can answer however you want, but
I think, and it's funny because my in-laws say like I don't really need anything, right? Like I'm happy with a TV to watch and games or TV shows to watch. So I would. Whatever money I could actually keep to myself would be a movie theater system with like the most comfortable couches you can imagine to watch football games and basketball games and watch TV and all that stuff. So that would be a huge room in my mansion and probably get a basketball court in there too. But I'd still be coaching. That's still the funnest part of my day. I wouldn't change.
Coach, with that type of money, you can do like the coach did at Coastal Carolina. The billionaire who's the head coach, he had experience, but this was a few years ago. He was the head coach of Coastal, but he contributed so much money to the program, they weren't going to say, no, you can't coach.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't say this, but there's probably some creative NIL ways now. I could stream that money back into the kids.
Yeah.
Oh, there definitely is. That's
probably pretty creative that if you really wanted to.
Right. I even said this to Coach Arvell. I said, look, man, I know the Division I schools take advantage of the NIL, and I've even asked some of the coaches that recruited my son, but I was like, can't the Division II and Division III like really try to take advantage of that with the local businesses and maybe local grads that have done okay? And then nobody's getting rich, but is there a way? Do you guys even try to like with Ty Singer or any of those places try to coordinate something like that, or do you not do it?
As I understand the rule, we're not allowed to be the ones to solicit that essentially. But yeah, Bojangles down the street, the guy that owns it's a big, sports fan. So he signed our quarterback to an NIL deal. He gets like $50 gift card a month and a bunch of swag and post Twitter once. But he was pretty. Here's what he did. He said, I'll do it, but you got to do it for my offensive lineman too. So our offensive line, obviously they appreciate that Bojangles money. So that's the one we have going now, but I'm sure there's lots of little ones like that are pretty, it makes the kids feel good about it. And, it's still keeping to the ideals of D3 football.
Yeah.
Mission Barbecue did Tech offensive lineman.
Oh, yeah. That Bojangles, by the way, not far from your campus is where my dad and I would always meet on my way before I left to go back home over the last 20 years. We'd meet at the Bojangles, we'd eat, and we'd say goodbye. But, okay. So, but Coach, let me just say something. What you told me you would do, you could do with $1 million. I'm talking $5 billion, bro. Let me give you an example. I would try to make more billions, and I'd buy a team like the Washington football team, the Commanders, or a basketball team, because, then you got the arena for because I want the arena, I want the team, I want to be able to go to all the shows, and I just want to be a ball. Now, that's me. That's what I'm saying. Like, because and then, Coach, I could hire you to coach my team, the Commanders, because I would be the good Dan Snyder.
Yeah.
I would say maybe that should have been my answer, is by the Commanders, and then I'll be the most popular guy in Northern Virginia. I mean, following Dan, that'd be an easy deal, right? That'd be a layup.
They're talking about them going for $8 to $9 billion, by the way. So 5 will not cover that. But another one we asked, what if you had one meal for the rest of your life?
Oof. Is this? I guess I gotta stipulate. Is it? Am I gonna gain 200 pounds if this is my meal? Just a hypothetical.
I don't know.
Oh, we didn't say it was a
burn it
buffet.
off, or you can lay around.
You're going to eat the same thing. It's
Right.
up to you if you're going to eat 4 steaks or 1.
Yeah. Probably some kind of chicken meal where you can get creative, right? Where you can have Mexican chicken one day and then put some different seasoning on it the next day, so you don't get tired of the same stuff every day. I mean, my gut answer is pizza because I love pizza, but I don't know if that could get old fairly quickly.
Yeah, everything get old. Yeah,
I'm going seafood. But look, Coach. Now you coming out of high school, what was the most? You said you were 250. Did you want and have to gain weight as an offensive lineman in college?
Yeah, I mean, I was eating a lot to keep it on, and I think every lineman, right? You're always the big guy at the party. Always the you see the girls hitting on, like, our quarterback was the guy, right? So you want to be that guy when you get done. So I always knew I wanted to try to take the weight back off when I could.
Well, the Jeff Saturday, like he was like you just played in the league.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you've obviously slimmed down a lot.
Yeah, I took off about 60, and I figured do it while you're young, because I've seen a lot of guys try to do it when they're 50 years old, and it's a whole lot tougher.
Yeah. When you said you played offensive line, I mean, again, I'm just looking through Zoom, but I was like, oh, he looked like a tight end or receiver. Okay. And we have a mutual good friend, a young man I mentored, and he's been on our show. He's been the head coach. I don't know if you know him, but Jeremiah Davis. He's been the head coach at West Potomac, Herndon High. He was on the staff at Westfield, and now he's helping out at Loudoun County. But I was mentoring him through high school, and he was an All-American. He played at Penn State, defensive end, and he could not keep the weight on, and he comes from a family of, his mother's large and a lot of people in his family. But I used to joke him. I was like, bro, it's hard for you to gain and keep the weight on. I said, but you wait. It's going to be a time. And now my man is 6'5", and I won't say his weight, but I'm sure it's up there. Like they probably couldn't block him now, but I was like, all that eating you're trying to do, even my son, who's a defensive back, coming out of like 9th and 10th grade, he was like 140. And we're like, you got to get up to 160, 170 by his, he just couldn't eat enough. And because he worked out and just burned everything.
Yep.
Yeah, there ain't no question about it. So, you go to an alumni party and there's some guys that are, 100 pounds heavier and 100 pounds lighter. It's always
right.
It's usually both. It's one of the two. See a lot of linemen, a lot of former Redskin commanders. They've like lost 70, 80 pounds. And then you see the guys that actually get way more. But before we close out, I just wanted to ask you, do you have a summer camp for Christopher Newport football?
We're not going to do any camps. We like to do the junior days to just get the
Right.
kids. Because we feel like if we get them on our campus, we got, a pretty good a chance of getting them interested in us. So then we go to all the one-day camps you could imagine around the state. So if there's one, there'll be a CNU coach there.
Are there still, you guys know this, Rusty, you too, with Justin, are there still team camps? Because North Carolina was big, Tar Heels, Virginia Tech was big. Do they still have team camps? That's what I was asking about.
Yeah. Teams still do those, and we're probably going to have one this year up in Williamsburg at the War Hill Sports Complex, where we get a bunch of high school teams, and it's great for them because they get the opportunity to get extra practices and pads, and all. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody.
Is that overnight?
That'll probably be just a day deal.
Okay.
To avoid. So it's typically Richmond/Hampton Roads teams that you get there.
So
okay.
If any of the parents or the student athletes want to check that out, should they watch the Christopher Newport University athletic site?
Yeah, all that information will go up on our website under the summer camps side of it. And
Right.
all of our contact info is up there too. So if you have a prospective student athlete you want us to know about, we're pretty open book.
Right.
Just we'll let you know.
All that stuff too, right?
Yeah, Twitter. I mean, that's huge now. For better for worse, it's where a lot of that stuff happens.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we close, I just want to ask you, who's your primary recruiter up here?
Eli Wicklund.
Okay. He's doing a good job. Getting great football players.
There's I think it was Bobby Bowden had a saying, and I took it to heart when I took over, was, It ain't the X's and O's, it's the Joes, right? It's the guys you got. So he said if I could have an average coach and a great recruiter, or a great coach and an average recruiter, I'll take the average coach as a great recruiter. So, I wanted to bring some guys that could come in and do it, and I was fortunate to be able to hire some.
Good deal. Good deal.
Cool. All right. Well, look, Coach, we really appreciate you being here with us today. You've done a great job. And look, anything we can do to help promote your program or Christopher Newport, please feel free to reach out. And we're going to have to come check out a game. I was planning to go last year to one, but then something came up and we couldn't make it down. But again, I'm one of your biggest fans. I love Christopher Newport. I love the football program. I remember Coach Newsom was there. Coach
D, you mean?
I mean, Coach D. I'm sorry, Coach D. But then did Coach Quinlan? Was he ever at Christopher Newport? Were you ever there with him?
Before my time, early in the program.
Okay, yeah. My brother was very, very close with Coach Quinlan. They coached together, and then he was friends with a lot of my family members. So I know so I just again loved everything you guys do. And look, folks out there, go to support Christopher Newport. You will be amazed at the facilities. The games are great. And I would say apply, but you gotta have a GPA, bro. You gotta bring it.
Yeah.
And all of the athletic programs there are on point. So yeah, Coach. Again, we thank you for joining us. Kirk, anything?
No, I was just gonna say, Christopher Newport's seeking that national championship baseball come close. So baseball is open. We're having unbelievable weather. They got a homestand, a 3-game series with Newport this weekend. The defending softball
women's
champions with Coach Keith Parr, they're getting ready to start. So, and those are awesome facilities. So, yeah, get out there and support. And I would definitely like to get down to a game. I've never been to a game, and I know that that's a great atmosphere. But Coach, we really
one last thing, Coach. How is the competition between the coaches? Because everybody looks to be successful. Your basketball team always great, but they're like 22-3. They're getting ready to start their playoffs. Their tournament quarterfinals. Do you guys kind of rag on each other about who's having the success?
Women's basketball is undefeated right now too, but
yeah.
Not overtly, but I think you're always checking the stat columns and comparing yourself to the other sports for sure. I think that's human nature.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, good. Thanks again, Coach. We really appreciate it. And good luck in this coming season and all of your summer workouts and everything. And so for Coach Paul Crowley, my co-host Kirk Hilliard, this has been the Kirk and Byrd Show. We're out.